May 3, 1350, the night was quiet along the Maritsa River. The combined Serbian-Bulgarian army believed they would strike the Ottomans at dawn. Around 50 men rested in their camp near the village of Chernomen. Fires burned low, guards were relaxed, and the leaders, Vukashin and Uglejesha Emarenjevchevik, were certain that victory was near. Before sunrise, the Ottomans moved. Lala Shahin Pasha led a few thousand light cavalry through the mist. They had studied the enemy's camp for days. Just before dawn, they charged, fast, silent, and devastating. Torches lit tents on fire, horses panicked, and the entire camp woke to chaos. Soldiers stumbled half-armed into the dark as Ottoman blades cut through them. Those who fled found the river behind them and drowned trying to cross. When the sun rose, the battlefield was silent. Both Serbian commanders were dead, and the army was gone. Tens of thousands of corpses floated in the river or lay scattered on the banks. The Ottoman losses were small. The Battle of Maritsa ended Balkan unity in a single night. Without their strongest nobles, the Christian states south of the Danube collapsed into confusion. The Ottomans now had a clear path into Europe. The victory showed their strategy, speed, surprise, and discipline against larger, slower foes. From that night on, the Balkans were no longer defending a border, they were fighting for survival. 2 decades earlier, in 1354, an earthquake struck the Gallipoli Peninsula. Byzantine fortresses crumbled and garrisons fled. The Ottoman Prince Suleiman Pasha, son of Orhan, saw his chance. He ferried troops across the Dardanelles, occupied the empty forts, and fortified the area before the Byzantines could react. This was the turning point. For the first time, a Turkish army held permanent ground in Europe. From Gallipoli, they built wooden towers, bridges, and small settlements. Turkish families followed the soldiers and stayed. Each fortress became a base for new raids into Thrace. The Byzantines were too weak to stop them. Civil wars divided their empire, plague reduced their population, and they had no money to pay soldiers. When they finally sent troops to retake Gallipoli, the Ottomans held the walls easily. What began as an accident of nature became a lasting conquest. By 1361, Ottoman forces advanced inland, taking Adrianople, Edirne. They now controlled the road between the Black Sea and the Aegean. This foothold gave them a bridgehead for everything that followed. Within a decade, their raiders reached the Maritsa Valley, and the small frontier emirate that had once guarded Anatolia's border had crossed into the heart of Europe. When Sultan Orhan died in 1362, his son Murad took power and turned the frontier army into an organized empire. His first move was bold. He made Edirne the new capital, shifting the seat of power from Asia Minor to Europe. The message was clear. The Ottoman future was west. Murad reshaped the state to support constant expansion. He formed the Janissary Corps, an elite infantry trained from childhood to obey only the Sultan. To fill their ranks, he introduced the Devshirme, a levy on Christian villages. Boys were taken to be educated, converted, and trained as soldiers or administrators. Many rose to high office. It created a loyal, professional army unmatched in the region. He also expanded the timur system, granting land to cavalrymen, sipahi's, in exchange for service. Each timur holder collected taxes, maintained order, and provided armed men during campaigns. This kept the empire's army permanent and self-funded. Murad's campaigns were methodical. He took Philippopolis, Sofia, and Nis, turning them into fortified centers. Instead of destroying local rulers, he made them vassals who paid tribute but kept their titles. This gave stability and ensured loyalty without constant garrisons. By the late 1380s, the Ottomans controlled most of Thrace and Macedonia. Serbia, Bulgaria, and the Byzantine Empire were forced into treaties that kept them quiet. Murad ruled both sides of the Dardanelles, an empire stretching across continents, built not on single victories but on steady, organized conquest. After securing Thrace, Murad pushed deeper west. Ottoman armies advanced in multiple directions, north into Bulgaria, west into Macedonia, and south toward Greece. Their movements were fast and coordinated. Each new victory was followed by settlement, rebuilding, and administration. Cities such as Philippopolis, Sofia, and Nis became major Ottoman bases. Garrisons protected trade routes and collected taxes. Local rulers who surrendered were confirmed as vassals under Ottoman supervision. Those who resisted lost their lands. This policy spread Ottoman control without endless war. Serbia, weakened by internal rivalries, accepted tributary status. Bulgaria was divided and forced under direct rule. The Byzantine emperors, reduced to a few coastal cities, signed temporary truces simply to survive. The Ottomans now reached the Danube, Europe's great natural barrier. Their raiders crossed it often, testing defenses in Hungary and Wallachia. By the late 1380s, the Balkan landscape had changed completely. The Ottomans built roads linking Edirne to every major fortress, allowing armies to move faster than any opponent. Their commanders used scouts and signal fires to coordinate campaigns hundreds of kilometers apart. The combination of organization, discipline, and adaptability made them unstoppable. To Europe, this new power seemed sudden. In reality, it was years of quiet planning. When news of Ottoman victories spread, panic followed. Balkan nobles, realizing the danger too late, gathered their armies once more. They hoped to repeat the triumphs of old crusades. But in 1389, on the plains of Kosovo, they would face Murad I himself, and the result would seal the fate of the Balkans for centuries. In the summer of 1389, two armies faced each other on the plains of Kosovo Polj, near modern-day Pristina. On one side stood Prince Lazar Hrebeljanovic, leading the combined Serbian forces with support from Bosnia and Wallachia. Around 25,000 men gathered under his banner. On the other side stood Sultan Murad I, commanding roughly 35,000 Ottomans, janissaries in the center, cavalry on both wings, and archers ready to cover every advance. At dawn on June 15, the battle began. The Serbs charged first, smashing into the Ottoman right flank. For a moment it looked like they might break through, but Murad's center held firm and his left wing counterattacked. Dust, noise, and smoke covered the plain. Both armies fought for hours, often hand-to-hand. During the fighting, a Serbian knight named Miloš Obilić reportedly slipped through the chaos and reached the Ottoman camp. Accounts differ, but most agree that he entered under false pretenses and killed Sultan Murad with a concealed weapon. The Sultan died instantly. His son Bayezid immediately took command, without hesitation. He ordered the execution of his own brother to prevent a succession crisis, then launched a massive counterattack. The Serbian lines, already exhausted, began to collapse. Prince Lazar was captured and executed. By nightfall, the field was covered with the dead of both armies. The Battle of Kosovo ended in mutual destruction. The Serbian army was wiped out and Ottoman losses were also severe. But for the Ottomans, new soldiers could be raised quickly. For the Serbs, the defeat broke their power permanently. Within years, Serbia became a vassal state and its independence was gone. Kosovo became a symbol for the Serbs, a story of heroic sacrifice. For the Ottomans, proof that destiny was on their side. The battle marked the point where resistance in the Balkans turned from defense to survival. After Kosovo, Bayezid I, known as Yildirim, the Thunderbolt, took the throne. He moved fast to secure control. Any provinces wavering in loyalty were subdued within months. Bulgaria was fully annexed in 1393. Serbia remained under vassal rule but sent tribute and troops. The Byzantine Empire, surrounded on all sides, was forced to pay for protection. Bayezid reorganized the empire's administration. He improved tax collection, built new roads, and strengthened fortresses across the Balkans. He stationed garrisons along the Danube to block Hungarian raids. By 1394, his armies reached as far as Albania and Bosnia. Constantinople was placed under siege, cut off by both land and sea. In 1396, Europe tried to strike back. King Sigismund of Hungary led a crusade backed by knights from France, Germany, and Burgundy, one of the largest Western coalitions of the age. They marched south, confident that their armor and cavalry would crush the Ottomans. The Crusaders ignored local advice, believing victory was guaranteed. At Nicopolis, near the Danube, Bayezid waited. His plan was simple: hold the line, draw the enemy in, and counterattack with fresh reserves. The French and Burgundian knights charged uphill into a line of Ottoman archers and hidden stakes that broke their formation. When they reached the Janissaries, they were surrounded by cavalry from both flanks. The charge that began with shouts of triumph ended in slaughter. Thousands were killed, thousands more were captured. Bayezid ordered most of the prisoners executed, sparing only nobles for ransom. The Battle of Nicopolis destroyed Europe's last major crusading army. The Ottomans were now the undisputed power of the Balkans. From Hungary to Anatolia, Bayezid ruled an empire stretching across 2 continents. But his speed and ambition soon drew the attention of a greater threat rising from the east, the empire of Timur the Lame. In 1402, the Ottomans met an enemy unlike any they had faced before. Timur of Samarkand, known in the west as Tamerlane, had conquered Persia, Central Asia, and northern India. When Bayezid expanded into eastern Anatolia, their borders collided. Neither would back down. The 2 armies met near Ankara in July. Bayezid commanded about 85,000 men. Timur's army was larger, with experienced cavalry and elephants from India. The summer heat was brutal. Bayezid's troops suffered from thirst, while Timur's forces had secured nearby wells. During the battle, several of Bayezid's vassal contingents defected, including the Tatars and some Anatolian beyliks. Surrounded and exhausted, the Ottoman army broke. Bayezid was captured. His defeat shocked the Islamic world. The once unstoppable empire fell apart overnight. Provinces declared independence and rival generals seized cities. In the Balkans, vassal states such as Serbia, Wallachia, and Bosnia regained autonomy. The Byzantine Empire briefly recovered land around Constantinople. Europe celebrated, believing the Ottoman threat was finished. But Timur had no interest in ruling Anatolia or the Balkans. After his victory, he withdrew to Samarkand, leaving chaos behind. The Ottoman Empire was broken but not destroyed. Its administration, tax system, and army structure survived, waiting for someone strong enough to reunite them. After Bayezid's capture, his sons turned against each other. Suleiman, Issa, Musa, and Mehmed all claimed the throne. For 11 years, they fought a civil war known as the Interregnum. The empire split in half: Europe under Suleiman, Asia under Issa and Mehmed. Each prince sought allies in the Balkans. Suleiman promised trade privileges to Venice and peace to Hungary. Musa allied with Serbia and Wallachia, then later fought them. The Balkan rulers tried to use the chaos to restore independence, but their lands soon became battlegrounds for Ottoman succession wars. In 1410, Mehmed crossed from Anatolia into Europe to face his brother. The 2 armies met near Samarlu in 1413. Mehmed's disciplined troops, supported by loyal Janissaries, won a decisive victory. Suleiman was killed, and Mehmed became Sultan Mehmed I. His first act was to restore stability. He reorganized tax collection, rebuilt the army, and re-established control over the Balkan provinces. Rebellions in Serbia and Bulgaria were crushed, and vassal treaties were renewed. Edirne again became the political center of the empire. By the time Mehmed I died in 1421, the Ottoman state had recovered completely. The chaos after Ankara was over. The empire's borders were smaller than before, but its system was intact. The next sultans would expand it again, stronger, more centralized, and more determined than ever. The interregnum proved one thing: even after total collapse, the Ottoman framework was too solid to vanish. Within a decade, it had risen again, and the Balkans would once more feel the weight of its armies. When Murad II took the throne in 1421, the Ottoman Empire was stable again. His father, Mehmed I, had rebuilt its foundations after years of civil war, and Murad inherited an organized army, a functioning government, and loyal provinces. His mission was simple: resume expansion. Murad began by tightening control in both Europe and Asia. He rebuilt fortresses along the Danube and restructured the Janissary Corps with better pay and training. He also expanded the use of artillery, which had become essential in siege warfare. The Ottomans were now masters of both mobility and firepower. Europe responded with new crusades. The first came in 1444, when King Władysław III of Poland and Hungary, allied with Venice and the papacy, launched a campaign to drive the Ottomans out of the Balkans. The armies met near the Black Sea at Varna. The Crusaders numbered around 25,000. Murad's force was slightly larger but better organized. The terrain near Varna favored the Ottomans. Murad positioned his flanks on hills, with the sea protecting his right side. The battle began with the Hungarian charge that broke part of the Ottoman line, but Murad's Janissaries held firm. When the young king led a reckless attack toward Murad's command post, he was surrounded and killed. His army collapsed soon after. Varna was a decisive Ottoman victory. 4 years later, Europe tried again. John Hunyadi of Hungary led another coalition, meeting Murad at the Second Battle of Kosovo in 1448. The fighting lasted 3 days. Heavy artillery and disciplined formations allowed the Ottomans to absorb the Crusaders' assaults and counterattack effectively. By the end, Hunyadi's army was destroyed, and European power in the Balkans was finished. Murad's victories secured permanent Ottoman control across southeastern Europe. By 1450, the Danube had become the empire's northern frontier. No large Christian army would again enter Ottoman territory for decades. The Balkans were no longer contested ground. They were Ottoman lands. Even as most of the Balkans submitted, resistance never disappeared completely. Local rulers continued to fight for independence, often with support from Venice or the papacy. Two names stood out: Skanderbeg in Albania and Mircea the Elder in Wallachia. In Albania, Gjurj Kastrioti, known as Skanderbeg, had been taken by the Ottomans as a child and raised in their service. He became an officer in the Ottoman army, trusted and well-trained. But in 1443, during a campaign in Hungary, he deserted. He rode back to Albania, seized his family's fortress at Kruja, and declared rebellion. For the next 20 years, Skanderbeg led a guerrilla war from Albania's mountain strongholds. His army rarely exceeded 10,000 men, but they knew the terrain and used it to full advantage. He defeated several Ottoman expeditions, including major ones in 1444, 1450, and 1466. He gained allies in Venice, Naples, and the papacy, each eager to see the Ottomans distracted. However, the alliances were inconsistent. European powers sent money and promises but few soldiers. The Pope praised Skanderbeg as a Christian hero, but the wars of Italy and the fall of Constantinople soon drew attention elsewhere. The Ottomans, patient and persistent, wore down the rebellion over time. When Skanderbeg died in 1468, Albania's resistance quickly collapsed. Within a decade, the country was fully under Ottoman rule. To the north, Wallachia remained defiant under Mircea the Elder, and later his descendant Vlad III, known as Vlad the Impaler. They used ambushes and scorched earth tactics to resist Ottoman invasions. Vlad famously led night raids against Ottoman camps along the Danube, but Wallachia was too small to stand alone. It survived as a vassal, sometimes independent, sometimes under Ottoman pressure. These uprisings proved that the Balkan peoples would not accept conquest quietly, yet they also showed the limits of resistance. Divided by politics, geography, and religion, no united front ever re-emerged. The Ottomans could always return stronger, while their opponents stood alone. By the mid-1400s, Ottoman rule in the Balkans was not just military, it was administrative. The empire built a system that could last. Conquered territories were divided into sanjaks districts governed by beys, all reporting to the beylerbeyi in Edirne. The empire kept local structures but placed them under its supervision. At the local level, Christians and Muslims lived side by side. Each community had its own leaders, courts, and religious authorities. The millet system allowed Orthodox Christians and Jews to manage their own affairs as long as they paid taxes and accepted Ottoman law. Churches remained open, and priests continued their duties. It was control through structure, not destruction. The empire's economic backbone was the timur system. Land was not privately owned. It was granted by the Sultan to cavalrymen, known as sipahis, in exchange for military service. These men collected taxes from peasants and maintained order. The system kept the army funded and ensured local governance without massive bureaucracy. Another major institution was the devshir, or child levy. Every few years, boys from Christian villages were taken to be trained as janissaries or civil servants. They were converted to Islam, educated in languages, mathematics, and military arts, and sworn to loyalty only to the Sultan. Many rose to high positions: governors, admirals, even grand viziers. To Ottoman rulers, it was a path of merit. To the families, it was both honor and grief. Trade routes flourished under Ottoman stability. The Balkans connected the Black Sea to the Adriatic and Aegean. Cities like Edirne, Sofia, and Thessaloniki became commercial centers. Markets were regulated, roads repaired, and caravans protected. Taxes were predictable, which encouraged merchants from across Europe and Asia to trade safely. Architecture also transformed the region. Stone bridges, mosques, and caravanserais appeared in every major town. Many Christian churches were repaired under Ottoman supervision. The empire understood that prosperity made loyalty easier than fear alone. For most peasants, life changed little in daily routine. They farmed, paid taxes, and obeyed their local authorities. But freedom and autonomy were gone. The decisions that once belonged to kings or nobles now came from Edirne and, ultimately, from the Sultan himself. Stability came at the price of independence. One of the last major strongholds to fall in the Balkans was Thessaloniki, the great port of northern Greece. It had changed hands many times: Byzantine, then Venetian, before the Ottomans closed in. In 1422, Murad II began the siege. The Venetians controlled the harbor, but Ottoman armies surrounded the city by land, cutting off supplies. The siege dragged on for years. Inside the walls, hunger and disease spread. Venetian galleys tried to bring reinforcements, but the Ottoman blockade held firm. Many citizens grew desperate and blamed Venice for using the city as a bargaining chip in its trade wars. In 1430, after 7 years, the Ottomans launched a final assault. Their artillery broke the defenses, and the city fell. Murad allowed 3 days of plunder, a harsh but standard practice of medieval warfare, and then restored order. He ordered Thessaloniki to be repopulated. Greeks, Turks, and Jews were encouraged to settle there, and within a decade it became one of the empire's most diverse and prosperous cities. Its harbor reopened under Ottoman control, linking the Balkans directly to the Aegean Sea. To the west, Albania continued to resist for a few more decades under Skanderbeg's successors. After his death, small rebellions continued, but none had his leadership or support. By the late 1470s, the mountains that had defied empire for generations were finally subdued. With the fall of Thessaloniki and the end of Albanian resistance, the Ottoman conquest of the Balkans was complete. From the Danube to the Aegean, the region was unified under one rule. Roads, markets, and armies moved freely across territories that had once been divided by dozens of small kingdoms. Europe now faced a new reality. The Balkans were no longer a borderland. They were the Ottoman gateway to the continent. From these lands, the empire would later march toward Vienna, spreading its power even deeper into Europe. The frontier had not only fallen, it had become the foundation for a new empire. By the early 1450s, the Balkans were secure. Serbia, Bulgaria, Albania, and Greece were all under Ottoman control. The Danube marked the northern frontier, and Edirne had become one of the largest cities in Europe. Trade, taxes, and manpower flowed steadily into the empire. For the first time, the Ottomans had the full resources needed to strike their greatest target, Constantinople. The city had stood as a symbol of Christian endurance for more than 1,000 years, but by 1450, it was surrounded on all sides. The Byzantine Empire was reduced to the city itself and a few outlying forts. Emperor Constantine XI ruled over a population of barely 50,000. The empire that had once rivaled Rome now depended on foreign loans and mercenary soldiers to survive. When Murad II died in 1451, his son named II inherited both the throne and a clear mission. At just 19 years old, he began immediate preparations for a campaign that would change the world. From the Balkans, he drew thousands of soldiers and engineers. He ordered the casting of massive cannons and the construction of new fortresses to cut off Constantinople's supply lines. Shipyards along the Gallipoli and the Golden Horn produced fleets to close the sea routes. Everything the Ottomans had built in the Balkans, their roads, administration, and unity, now pointed toward one goal. The conquest of Europe's frontier had been only the beginning. The siege of 1453 would become the defining moment of their empire, the victory that turned a regional power into a world empire. The Ottoman conquest of the Balkans was not just a story of military victories. It was the result of deep structural differences between the conquerors and the conquered. Four main factors explain why the Balkans fell and why the Ottomans stayed. Finally, the Ottomans ruled with pragmatism and tolerance. They did not destroy what they conquered. Instead, they used local elites, respected religious institutions, and allowed trade to continue. Christian peasants often found Ottoman tax policies less harsh than those of their former lords. Stability brought order, and order meant less reason to rebel. These four forces, division, discipline, distraction, and pragmatism, explain the Ottoman success. The empire conquered by the sword but held its lands through administration. The Balkans did not fall in a single battle. They were absorbed over a century by a system designed to endure. The Ottoman conquest of the Balkans reshaped southeastern Europe for the next 500 years. From the mid-1300s to the late 1800s, the region remained part of the Ottoman world. Borders shifted, empires rose and fell elsewhere, but Ottoman administration continued to govern much of the peninsula. The fall of the Balkans was not just a military conquest. It was the creation of a new world order that linked Europe and Asia under one power. From the banks of the Danube to the gates of Constantinople, the Ottoman Empire built a bridge that lasted longer than any kingdom that came before it. For centuries afterward, the Balkans remained the empire's heartland, proof that from the ashes of medieval Europe, a new and enduring power had risen.